Tartarians. We said Tartarians.
Okay, just to let you know that I'm also recording from my side.
Perfect.
Because, you know, for example, when I did my first interview, I was interviewing somebody else on Skype and the recording didn't work and it was such a shame. And after that, I always record. So in case your recording fails, you can get mine. Hopefully they don't fail both of them. And then 2 times it happened that people interviewed me and they had failure with their recordings, you know, as well. So I gave them mine. And they were so embarrassed to tell me, you know, one of them was apologizing for 3 days before he even told me what is the problem. And
I can imagine.
I'm telling you beforehand to give you some peace of mind, because even if we do everything we're supposed to, sometimes they fail.
Yeah. I'm starting to believe in some superstitious stuff, I guess. The more I look into this, the metaphysical anthropology is rubbing me a little deep. I get the feeling that several of the interviews I've done, something has been done on purpose in a supernatural sense. I know that sounds a little excessive, but I honestly think the only thing we can do is double it up. Everybody try to upload and work together, which is exactly why I'm really excited that you decided that you'd be down to do this. And anybody who hasn't heard this, by the way, this is Sylvie from New Earth, probably one of the most important stations right now in world anthropology. So thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for the flattering words. They're a bit exaggerated.
It's a Hollywood thing, but no, the funny thing is it's true. Like I think that it takes a while for people to catch up with all of the work you've done. You've done a lot more work than most people, and in general, the people that you work with, I think, would agree. Anybody who's talked with you knows you're on the pulse, and you're not pushing an agenda. You have like a way of looking at things, but you're very open to people that have a very different way of looking at things. So I think that makes you more of a questioner than just someone who's telling people what to think.
Well, thank you. You're right about many things. But also, the only thing I would like to add is that it will be very sad indeed if I'm one of the best. Because I know myself, but to be honest, sometimes every few months I just consider to stop making videos and shut up because I'm just not qualified to do that. But yet each and every time I continue doing it because yes, so many people would do it better than me, but they don't do it. Somehow nobody else does.
Correct.
Much of the things I do, although I'm sure they're more capable than me.
Well, it's everyone's capable in different ways, and I hate to sound like a kindergarten teacher, but I've noticed so many of the people in this field, they think they're not good enough in one way or another, but they happen to be the best at one thing or a few, and that's literally how education and academia works, and how expertise works. People get very deep in one field, which, yeah, it feels frustrating to the individual, but as we're sharing our information, so much is happening because so many people with so very many different specializations are seeing yours. So I think that's also funny when people say, oh, well, I'm not an expert in this. Well, that just means you're at the beginning of learning your expertise about that. So.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. I guess I wanted to ask you a bit about your trip to start with. You just got back. Where did you go?
I was on hastily planned expedition combined with personal reasons to Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary.
And what did you see while you were out there?
My main target were the Trovant, the allegedly living and growing stones of Romania. But because of them, I actually saw more interesting things on the way, because the site with the Trovants was already, how to say, plundered. Just people took them home. And there was very little left. And although it was very interesting for me personally, because it confirmed everything that I was suspicious of when I was making the videos about living stones, as far as the information and the articles that are already published online, they have nothing to do with reality. They have been written by people who copy and paste and have never been there. So it's a completely different thing than described, yet interesting. But what was more interesting and was supposedly just minor sites to visit on the way were a site in Bulgaria called Istrum, which surprised me with its huge megalithic blocks. They were some 2-3 meters long, bigger, quite bigger than me. I was not expecting that. Probably even today I will manage to publish the video about, a short video about this site, which really caught me by surprise. And what was also very interesting during the trip were the numerous castles which I saw on the way. Renaissance, Baroque, Neo-Renaissance style. They were just wonderful. I was not expecting that in Romania, one of the best castles in the world. In Sinaia, for example, it was again a big surprise for me. And once I got so impressed by Sinaia, then I just started visiting every castle I could on the way.
That's so basically when you're looking at these castles, are you interested in, you know, the gargoyles or the stone itself? Like how would you explain your interest in, you know, geobiology, or how would you even introduce that?
The castles, I did not go to look for anything specific. I just went there because I've never been to Romania, and it was on my way, and it was recommended by somebody. I had no idea what am I entering in, and for me the most impressive was the beauty. I was supposed to be an artist, so this is like my personal interest, so to say. I felt as if I'm in an ayahuasca vision without drinking anything. It was so beautiful and rich. It was really, and after that I was like, am I like, because it's a very small provincial town in Romania, and I was expecting some sort of mediocre castle. But I was like, when I was walking inside, I was like, am I in Versailles or something? Or am I in Vienna? Or something like that? Just the richness. And in terms of research over there, the interesting thing was how near were people to the symbols of the survivors, as I call them. Even 100 or 200 years ago, there were swastikas everywhere. Also, some of the dates were written with I instead of 1000 in front of the three numbers. Like, and I saw that on many occasions, so it's not some exception. It is really like this.
Oh yeah, today, I'm in Spain, and I saw a building that is clearly being used by squatters from an anarchist collective, but it's from the 1800s at the most recent, you know, and it says right on it 1829, but the I is a J. It looks like a broken zero that's been, you know, turned into an I, but then the bends. So I've seen a lot of J I's recently too.
Yeah, there is lots of them. And another thing is, in some of the castles, there were knights arm. I'm sorry, I forgot the knight's armor. And again, I saw clearly that they were made for very small people. So people were smaller than us. Somehow we are growing tall.
Well, there's a number of different sized humanoids at the same time, it seems like. And Romania is an interesting place. I have had Italian friends, Roman friends, refer to Romania as the Tijuana of the Roman Empire because so many people retired there after being conscripted to the empire. So yeah, you'll find very wealthy families that had castles that are not just Roman or they look very Visigothic or like the Draculian castles of Van Helsing and very Northern European castles, very nice. Were you talking about like Dacia or like whereabouts were you that you saw?
The most impressive was in Sinaia, that is just north of Bucharest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in general, like that's closer to the wooden style. Is that like where they've got like the wooden cut and the points?
Yes, there was a lot of that.
Yeah, isn't that weird? I mean, it doesn't suit the Mediterranean. It's very like Danish or something or
yes, exactly Danish. Yeah,
that's fascinating. I mean, but the thing is, you do a lot of videos that are beyond just history or architecture. You kind of tie them together into a holistic view. I mean, I don't want to like speak for you on how far you go with this though, because it's something that's been very inspirational to me and a lot of other people. I've been talking to a lot of people about the idea of Opisthokonta or biology and geology. I mean, you look at mussels embedded into stone, and you think about how there's life that's just coherencies of habitat. But what do you think about life in geology or these rocks, or is that a thing for you?
Yes, this is a lot on my mind recently because I saw also the Trovans in Romania as well as a lot of actually same Trovans or in Romania they call them Babels, the local name. Actually the official name is concretions. These are all concretions. So in the winter I was in Jordan and in Petra there were lots and lots of concretions as well. And then again in Jordan we went to Wadi Rum, just the desert, to ride camels. And to have a break from history. And then I saw this, what was very surprising for me from geological point of view, I saw this very same concretions actually in, I believe it was granite. It was a very hard stone. And also I saw these stone flowers. The locals,
flowers?
Yes, they had like a stand over there near Petra, and half of the stand was fossils found in the mountains, and the other half was like rock flowers. So I asked them, "What are these?" And the person, he spoke English, and he explained to me, "These are fossils, and these are flowers that grow on the stone." And I was really asking, are these fossils as well, the flowers? He said, no, these are stone flowers. These are definitely not fossils. And also I've seen the same flowers flowering on other concretions. So it's really like cactuses. These concretions, many of them look like cactuses, and they flower like cactuses apparently. So couple of years ago, when I started noticing things about the living stones as part of the living earth, I thought that they really grow out of something like the cactuses grow on earth into the air, into the atmosphere. But when I was looking at different stones, especially in Petra, I noticed that they actually grow inside the, how to say, the geologists will call it sand, or they will call it volcanic ash. But I think a lot of it could be as well actually when the keepers of time were preparing the stage of the earth for the next layer of inhabitants like for us, it seems that the Earth's ruins are periodically being archived by destruction or by fire, or in many cases simply by layers of clay, ash, and things, and within them, because everything is alive now, I'm absolutely sure about that, these things, they start forming. Of course they are living, because everything is living. Everything is connected to this, not connected, it is this all-pervasive consciousness. So in these masses that we call dead masses of sand or ash, this consciousness forms into this, some people call them stone plants, or whatever name they call them, non-organic living entities. I found also many scientific references. Sometimes many biologists, they admit that these are biological forms, but they confuse them with something petrified. While on my trips, I saw a lot of evidence that they are not petrified. They grow and they form inside this mass, this sand or whatever, like soft stone, the material that eventually turns into stone. So
especially the flowers are the best example. Some of these life, they would dissipate. They would they'd be digested by microbes way before they could be fossilized.
Yeah. So this, for me, I know this type of videos don't get many likes and many views, but for me personally, this is extremely fascinating, because we've heard that the earth is alive, and objects or entire places of our habitat that we call dead are not actually dead. And I was always wondering how the shamans can interact with them and make them do things. Well, this is how they get connected to this informational field, this all-pervasive primeval consciousness, to which the stones also respond, and they grow. There will be a lot of interesting, at least interesting for me, footage in this regard very soon.
Great.
Although most of my viewers prefer to hear about aliens with lasers that are cutting the stone in a special way.
Well, I mean, what's wrong with people with lasers? We have plenty of people with lasers.
I didn't film any of those.
Yeah.
Sadly.
I mean, I have a laser. I don't think we need to worry about aliens with them. But the thing that's funny about life and biology, everyone's talking about it now. You just brought up this. I don't think you used the word, but you said basically Gaia theory. Oh, can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Oh, I think I was muted to record better. I was trying to say I agree with you. I think I have a laser. I think that, it's not that exciting or novel or alien, or at least it's not that exciting or novel. But this idea of humanoid life or consciousness, I think you didn't quite say the word, but you brought up the Earth is alive. It's this Gaia theory, which they've been pushing since I was in kindergarten and schools. But 100 years ago, at least, and then maybe 6,000, but at least 100 years ago, the Jesuits were pushing this idea of liberation theology, and that connected to Chardin's idea of the noosphere and the divine milieu, and this idea that we're all part of this life force. And it's funny now that they're just starting to admit it, because now we have plenty of science that makes it pretty obvious that life is, I mean, DNA in and of itself, you've got adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, right? And they're just different explosions. You've got, like, is this exploding this way or is this not? 4 different explosions over and over again. And so biology is just geology exploding chemical sequences that we're recording. So if that happens in the right way, it becomes very indistinguishable, life and mechanisms. But the real, if you're going to try, it has to be with consciousness. If you can find any sort of pattern, it would seem likely that there's some sort of consciousness, some sort of order. Well, everywhere we look, we're seeing geodes, we're seeing jade, we're seeing diamonds. We're not just seeing random shapes, And then also we're noticing coherency stacked up, where people are building these castles out of this material that's, precious. They know it's precious. They're not just using bad stone. They're using the stone that we know now to be the best, with the best science. So I think, it's going to be a short hop from you studying crystals to your audience understanding how lasers are made with crystals. But on Earth, not necessarily, but they, not exclusively by aliens.
A very good observation of yours. Excellent.
Thank you. There was some videos you talked about. Like I grasped for things we could debate. I mean, I guess you had mentioned at some point things about the Tartars' technology. I think I wouldn't actually disagree with you. I think you were just being reasonable to not overplay them. I think I've agreed they didn't probably have iPhones. But how would you say the level of the technology was? Or what was the sophistication of the people?
Which people exactly?
Okay, so that's another good question. Do you think of the Tartarian Empire as a confederation? Or do you think of them as different peoples that were very secluded from each other? Well, how far back do you go with resets, and what are your...
Maybe some sort of loosely organized federation.
How far does it spread around the world?
Well, initially it was on almost all continents, and then as the other side started gathering force and made its headquarters in Western Europe, they started quickly breaking off pieces and defeating them one by one.
And so at that moment before this, would you say this is Tartaria? Would you include this empire around the world as loosely held federation? Would all of that count Tartaria?
Well, that was the name used by the Western European cartographers. How did this federation call itself? Even that we don't know, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've been looking at old maps a lot, and they have these zones, the Tartarian Tart area, and it's all mounds of, it just looks like apocalyptic wastelands in Terminator 2. It doesn't look like there wasn't something there. It looks like something's been destroyed, but they kind of try to, everyone's been saying, oh, do you mean Polish people? Do you mean the Tatars? And yeah, I conclude that there's a larger empire like you do, but I think there's more technology. The thing that led me into it was some of the architecture as remnants. So I wonder what you think in terms of like the technology they had.
This is a very difficult one because, first of all, probably the most developed centers were simply wiped out. Like there is some material I have not published yet on my channel. For example, somebody found on an old map pyramids, and they were called like Tartarian, the pyramids of Tartaria, and they were like in the middle of Siberia. So this person thought this is strange. This is kind of wasteland now, and he bothered to find the exact specific locations that were marked on this map, and then he looked at modern satellite images, and much to his surprise, he found really like something which looked like ancient foundations of ancient ruins. They could have been exactly those pyramids. So there was some technology, but it is, I don't think it was electronics type. Probably it wasn't electricity based so much. That's why we may have difficulty understanding it.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's very difficult to say what exactly could they do. Or maybe in terms of communications, maybe those people with elongated skulls did the job that now internet does, maybe, but I'm not sure. Also, there are many things that I don't even have hypothesis about, like many people in Russia find things, especially in St. Petersburg and other parts of Russia, about industries and things that were manufactured a couple of 100 years ago. They are they totally do not correspond to the level of industry and general knowledge that people should have had at that time. In terms of mainstream history, where were these things manufactured? Even we see that all the buildings in those...
and to your credit for admitting that, you know, I mean, if you're going to say that there wasn't necessary technology, I mean, we are finding evidence of lots of kinds of limited parts. I mean, that's the oldest story, right? In Babylon, finding the electric batteries, you know, from 6,000 years ago, but just not everyone having it in their pocket. But there could be pockets of places like the Soviet Union and the United States clearly have vacuum tube systems and linear accelerators and technology that's very similar and very dispersed, but from very specific places.
I think that we're looking at those batteries just because they're kind of the closest to our paradigm. What about the airplane that the Indian man made following the old descriptions in the Vedic literature, and he flew it. It used mercury as fuel.
Right.
Now that's totally beyond us. That's why we talk about the Baghdad batteries, because they're nearer to our concept of electronics and electricity. But when this Indian, I'm a bit tired again, names escape me. Okay, I will remember later on.
Yeah.
We don't talk much about those type of technologies. Now, to fly a manned airplane made of bamboo on mercury and get it in the air, even for a very short flight, I think this is a big achievement, I mean, in modern times. Shivkar Bapuji Talpate, that is the name, sorry. I'm still a bit tired from the travel.
Absolutely.
So I think we should be looking more into this type of technologies that are a bit on the fringe of our understanding, because the Baghdad batteries, they were somewhat primitive, but because we're looking for primitive things, everybody has heard of the Baghdad batteries, but very few people have heard about Mr. Talpate, who flew this plane, and how could he do this? I think this is a small miracle, actually. And to get it in the air, this involves some understanding of how these mercury things work, and this is now connected to alchemistry.
Right.
So
alchemistry and also algebra. So the study of Kemet in Africa, and also the study of Hebra. But now I think we have a new word, Tartary, which would probably go in there as well. But there's a lot of evidence that there's been flying machines for a long time, and I'm really glad you're bringing up the Mercury, because that's, you know, it's been coming up a lot. First off, I know a lot of people that played with it in their palms as kids, and I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying all the crazy guys I know did it. And also, we've got just about as many people that aren't, you know, dying of immune disorders, so there's something going on with that. Second, the guy who's been our best star fort guy, and, you know, he's found like 10,000 star forts, and I'm, you know, Mr. Hollywood exaggerating, but I think he is #1 at this point in terms of star fort research. He said, I believe that there's mercury involved. I don't know how. And I kind of disregarded it at first, but then he's like, I just have these visions of like rivers of mercury, you know, these like the drought rivers, these aqueduct patterns they have. And then we started looking into mercury, and mercury is in all of this stuff. And not only that, it's in nanotechnology. In school, they made me study a lot about using mercury for nanothermometers, for activation of, you know, different mechanical electric systems. So they use that for data memory wiping and for electromagnetic systems. Mercury is going to basically be, you know, once they start making these new Airbuses, the new planes, the Airbus 320s, they have like 4 countries that they have to move all the parts to one center point of Europe for. They're coated with a very thin film of copper because they're made out of carbon. And then that's so if they get electrocuted, they'll be able to keep flying. But what they're not talking about is the other metal that's melted into the thin film, and that's mercury. So mercury in flying machines. There you go.
Yes, to sum it up so that we don't jump from one topic to another.
Sorry.
How did Tartaria think and what kind of technology they had before we even tried to figure out what kind of technology they had 600 or 700 years ago? I have got no clue what kind of technology they had 300 years ago so that they could have made St. Petersburg. Mm-hmm. And what was that? Was that the last breath, the last manifestation of Tartaria? Because the last pieces who had memories of this federation were somewhere in that region. Did they build St. Petersburg? Or was it already infiltrated with all kinds of Masonic streams into it, because St. Petersburg is full of Masonic science. Mm-hmm. I think when we find answer to those questions, then we can start inquiring about what kind of technology they had 700 years ago or 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, which I don't even dare asking at this point. I think we should first figure out the recent history for the last 1,000 years, and then we can ask questions about the older stuff.
Well, it's looking like what we're finding is there is technology. Every one of these resets we're finding, including the new one, Tartaria, has this Atlantis like.
The game?
Oh, thank you. Well, I was going to say, it looks like where we're looking now, we're finding technology. There's different kinds, but there's technology. And it's in each one of these resets. It's even in the new one, Tartaria, that we hadn't really noticed, had such high technology. There's Atlantis-level technology in Egypt, in the Middle Ages, and everywhere. But the level of sophistication, that's the question. It seems like there is a Masonic thing, as you said, at the beginning of the 20th century, which is leading on to putting all this into the pockets of each individual. I think that comes from that Athenian idea of giving the gods problems to man, and then they can figure out how to solve them, because the gods haven't figured out the answers. But I also noticed when you point out these things that there's stories of technology. There's electricity for at least a moment, whether it's shared or not shared. There's tons of stories about China where they said, you know, in the West came with batteries and with clocks. People just laughed because they weren't novel. It was just novel that they were being sold and used. I mean, they'd had them for 1,000 years. They just, who needs a clock? Who really needs it? Like, you know, unless you want to look cool. So But yeah, the flying machines, I think maybe we're not going to see like systems of airlines, but maybe there was at one point some sort of a system of travel that was more mechanical, whether, not just horses and things like that. And, people have talked about nuclear trains or steam trains or oil. Do you think that we're going to find examples of mechanical systems for travel and for, beyond what when people think about before 100 years ago, they don't think about any examples of technology, of high technology. So do you think that life was rather comfortable like it is today at some point in one of these resets?
Did you mention 400 years ago or something? About which time period are we talking about?
Any one of them. Like, do you believe that there was a time that was more modern? I don't know. I wouldn't say there was 5G and internet, but like, how far would you say civilization has gone before we helter-skeltered at any one of these resets?
I have got no clue. The only reliable information I have is that there was a civilization like ours. It had cars and trains, very much like ours, and probably internet as well. And it blew itself in a nuclear disaster. I don't know when that happened, or if even our counting of years was applicable then, because if the celestial bodies were configured in a different ways, even our idea of what an year is would not have existed in that way. So we cannot even apply that. So they blew themselves up. They were a worldwide civilization, like we are now. Like at the moment, it's uniform, more or less, everywhere in the world. And after that reset, it was not uniform at all. It was cavemen or tribal men, and at different spots around the earth, as various races were setting their own centers of civilization. At such small spots, there would have been advanced technology, possibly even far more advanced than ours, that would service only this particular small region. So it was very much scattered. I don't know for how many thousands, how many thousands of years did that go on. Edgar Cayce says the time of Atlantis was 30,000 years ago. I don't know, because he's not an absolutely reliable source.
I think your use of time is I think what you said about time was the most accurate I've heard. The cycle of time relies on the degradation of an atom from energy from the photons of a star. So if we're using different stars even, then the years are different years. It's just absolutely true what you said.
So for how many years was these centers here and there?
Or what kind of years? Are they the sun? Like, for instance, we don't talk about the name of our sun, but it's selenium, right? So there's other suns, so selenium years are different. It's almost like dog years. Like if you have, dog star Sirius years, they're going to take a different amount of time than selenium years for degradation.
Yeah, so thank you for the confirmation. And what we hear about Atlantis and Hyperborea is just just two of these centers of more developed civilization. I think there were many others which we don't even have legends about.
And it's funny, all these words have like troglodyte, you're from cavemen, troglodyte, and then Atlantis, the Tartarians are in there. So the tar going on.
Yeah. And only now in the recent years we are again developing this worldwide uniformity of civilization, for good or for bad, or it's just the theater goes on like this. So yes, this is in terms of answer, when did we have cars and internet again? I think it was in the civilization which blew itself up because the other centers which were scattered, I think they were mostly set up by races which were far above us, so they did not need these gross material mediums as we do. You know, we make some sort of a heavy gadget, relatively heavy, you know, or at least mechanical for every single function we want to make. But that was not the way they did it. They did it mostly through sound technology, which means magical spells, or sometimes even directly by manifesting things with their thoughts, or things like that. Because they were more advanced, they did not need our mechanical gadgets. But yet sometimes they had similar stuff, and that's why now and then we find artifacts, the most interesting of which sadly disappear quite fast somewhere in the we don't even know where.
But you found some things. I mean, I just saw recently the thing in Italy. It was like a Sacro Bosco or something. Like the split-tailed Ishtar bucks, you know, like the Starbucks siren tail.
Sirenas, yes, yes. I saw such sirenas depicted also in these castles that I was visiting, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah. What was that like in the castle?
Yes, so people remember them even 200 years ago. I saw them in few castles, actually. Yeah.
What do you think the deal is with the siren, the split-tailed siren?
These are one of the many spirits that the shamans are in touch with, and since in the past all civilizations were shamanic, I mean, people were in touch with the powerful spirits.
Have you read Victor Pelevin's Generation Pi about, you know, Babylon Tartarsky? Babylon Tartarsky, great name for a character, and he works in the Soviet administration, and then in the 90s he has to do commercials, you know. But he finds out that there is this split-tailed siren statue that was used by, you know, ancient Gilgamesh to mate Isis to man, and he ends up being the guy that they're supposed to mix with that statue. But I've started to notice a lot about the goddess because, for instance, Masons, you know, you were talking about, have you heard of the goddess Ma? So when I was talking to Martin, he did something recently, Martin Flashbush, on the Dionysus cult and the Bacchus cult. And an interesting side note of Bacchus was Dionysus replaced another goddess, Hestia. And Hestia is the goddess of the fireplace. And she used to be the goddess of a lot of other things, but she's been secluded to the fireplace now. And it's interesting because they make laws in California against having fireplaces. So Hestia is very important, but the Masons, they're the sons of Ma. And Islam even have the Muslims. It has to do with Ma. So this goddess Ma, her symbol is the footprints. Like Hollywood, they have the footprints into the concrete, but also the split-tailed siren. So
yes, all these deities, they're connected. Many of them are like the same deity having different names in different cultures. Like Ma is also in India a name for Durga Devi, also one of the angry deities, so to say, because she is often depicted like in a fierce form, like in a bad mood. And apparently also you're telling me the Muslims, they have the same name. I don't know if it is the same deity.
Well, so this is the thing. They have, it is from the Anatolian region of Cappadocia, like Cappadocia, and that it's like Turkey or the Uyghur region, And they have a lot of stones and Mount Taurus, you know, in the vicinity of the Black Sea. And by Mount Taurus, they believed in this goddess Ma. So that's it. And Ma's, you know, that's where the fairy chimneys, you know, that's like that's the Black Sea of, you know, Galatia, right?
Yes. The biggest concentration of fairy chimneys is in central Turkey, but they continue all the way. Also in Bulgaria, there are some in Romania and Hungary that I saw just a few days ago. Not as spectacular, but they continue. Yes, there are such chimneys everywhere.
And that's also like there's a lot of people die because of that. In 1975, I was reading on Wikipedia, 50% of the people's deaths were caused by mesothelioma, which was attributed to the Irianite zeolite minerals with similar properties to asbestos. So there's been a lot of correlations with the ancient ruins and dying of nanoparticulates, toxic nanoparticulates in those areas.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
It seems like a thing, you know, wherever there's the Ark of the Covenant, you've got a goddess, you got any of this stuff, people die. There's an alien or whatever technology, there's toxicity to it, it seems like.
Yes, those who have researched in detail the Ark of the Covenant, they suggest it emits some type of radiation, so it could do all this, it can make all this havoc all around. You're right. We don't know how much of that is true, but there are such theories, definitely.
Yeah, I tend to ascribe to the Ark of the Covenant one, similar also to the Egyptian one, that was like, if you open Tutankhamun's tomb, there will be a disease that can't be diagnosed, which will kill you. But, so in general, you think that these are just spirits they're in touch with? You think it's like there's a few deities or hyper-aware consciousness, or...
As a person, I lived more than 7 years in India myself. I'm almost a Hindu. For me, the deities are very real personalities. If that is the question.
So you think that there are a number of personalities made up of higher awareness? Is that what you're saying? Or how would you describe that, you know, to somebody who was trying to understand it?
You mean the deities, the personality of the deities?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, some people are like Hurricane Katrina a deity. So why is it that it's a thing?
Okay, this is a very difficult one. I think they are like managers, helpers of the Supreme God Creator. Like, for example, the way we appear to our cats. You know, we can do so many magical things. Like my cats, they come out and in the house from the window. They just wait outside in front of transparent magical portal. How does it open? Why sometimes it opens? How does this deity, means me, open it? This is all like very high level technology of them. Then all these cans with cat food, how do they appear, disappear? They don't understand, but you know, there is some connection. They want the cat food, but the full process of how is it made, how does it arrive, and also the deities, we often don't understand. Some people call them God. They also confuse these deities with the Supreme God. For example, many people say, I don't understand God, why he's supposed to love us but make us suffer so much. It's the same thing as my cat. She feels I love her, but yet she doesn't understand. After all this love, why don't I open all the canned foods for her? Because this is what she wants, and this is her understanding of love, because she always wants more and more food, even when she's full to the point of explosion. But because she has different understanding of love, this is like confusion for her. In the same way, many people are confused why God loves us but puts us in such terrible conditions of suffering. Yeah? Many people suffer from pain, from mental torment. And as far as understanding more about the deities, I mean, how much a cat can understand about what we think and do and know about technology. There are some intelligent cats, I don't deny, but still there is some level to which they can learn. You know, some cats have been imitating me, for example. They have learned a lot of things around the house, to open doors, but still they can never reach the sophistication even of a human child or understand a lot of the things we do. So these are just the higher entities which we cannot even imagine. That's why we resort to fairy tales. The religions are the best example of fairy tales. We want some explanation. We want it all figured out. That's why the religions were made, to give some extremely simple explanation so that people feel satisfied that I know everything. Or the deities, they are also the managers of time. They can pull time and events and the three-dimensional realities in the same way as we pull strings to wave a cloth. And this cloth in the example is our existence. This is my not very successful attempt to explain the deities.
That was not bad at all. I was toying with maybe asking you about ayahuasca then, because I feel like I would have almost brought it up earlier when we talked about the mechanisms of consciousness and biology and geology. But, you know, since we didn't, maybe now. Do you have any thoughts on ayahuasca?
I have many thoughts of ayahuasca, having taken it more than 200 times, but what specifically are you asking about?
I'm a fan. I lived in Peru. I thought that maybe you were the person that we could have the conversation about this with. I mean, I'm personally under the impression that it's a great example of a life that can be dormant and then reactivated because of consciousness that's stored in the atomic structure. But there's a lot of other things that are more interesting about it, I'm sure. So whatever you were thinking.
Well, let's return to the cat example. With ayahuasca, we can evolve from the cat level to, let's say, the level of a child of the gods, because she opens for us doors of perception which are usually closed for most humans. And with the new language that she teaches us, with this new vision that she gives us, it's like a new language of understanding the fabric of creation. Then at least some people can start understanding what is this earth theater play all about, and eventually even perceiving, having some basic understanding of the world the way the gods see it, the higher beings. By using ayahuasca the right way, we can almost reach the angelic level even while wearing the costume of the human body.
I think some people look at it like it's fun, and I think I don't think that's the right. I wanted to clear up anybody who didn't know. The fact that you've done 200 ayahuasca rituals sounds similar to me as an attorney saying they took the bar exam 200 times. It's a lot of work. It's very serious stuff. So I think that's also, you made that very clear. That's good.
Yes, and I'm feeling the last few months that I have to do something similar again, because I did a lot of drinking. Then there was a lot of rest, because now I live in Europe. Here it's not legal, and I need to travel if I want to drink again. So I'm also getting the feeling that in near future the Great Spirit will call me again for a serious drinking, because somehow for me it doesn't work like drinking a little bit and developing gradually. I wish it worked that way, and it was that way, but it does not happen to me. Apparently to me it has to be into stages, like for a short period to take a lot and then take months or years to process. Now I think I processed so far the drinking I did 5 years ago. And I think I'm ready for the next step, which might be again with a lot of drinking, because finally I started noticing major portions of my own self that I don't need anymore, and separating, parting with entire parts of what most people will call their own self. That is a major surgical removal. You know, of course, these are unwanted parts, and that is not an easy thing to do. It is for good, and I feel it is coming soon to my path, which of course will be good, because then I will be able to make better videos. And also the history, yes,
Sure.
I see perfectly that knowledge comes with purity. I read this many times when I was in India. I was like thinking I'm studying Vedic literature, but I could not apply almost anything. I remember reading that and not understanding it, but with ayahuasca now I see very clearly a lot of things. I already know them, and they become clear just because I have become a different person, and my vision is no longer distorted by some impurity that was like a stain on my real eyes. The eyes of my soul, I mean.
Right. This is the thing about the spirits that made me question. You know, like when I saw the lower spirits, there's like I went to like a Lakota thing, and so there's a lot of like, there's the grandmother spirit, there's the grandfather spirit, there's the family, there's basically just a family of spirit, and then they have a representative. Do you ever feel like you have advice for people on how to make sure that they're not involving with the wrong sort, to let the right one in? You know, I think this is the biggest scare for people, is to avoid an incubus and a succubus. Like, how would you recommend getting involved ethically and safely, if there is such a thing?
You mean how to avoid bad spirits?
Mm-hmm.
This is very difficult. Only your inner intention can be some sort of guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I tell you some like symptoms, for example, bad spirits, they have symbols that are that look like sharp weapons, or they are dark, or they are scary, or this and that. This will not work. There are some such guidances, but ultimately it's only your intention and what do you really want in life. That's all.
The road to hell is paved with good intention, I say. All right,
that is the problem, that our ideas of good and bad are distorted. This is the main problem. Yes.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I've got a couple more. If you've got, how are you for time? Can you handle two more questions?
Yeah, I can handle as many as you want, because now I'm in resting mode, so I don't just arrived home, and yes.
Excellent. Okay. Well, I've been seeing a lot of Asian stuff. I used to think that was just because when I was in Latin America, there was a lot of Chinese immigrants 200 years ago. But in Peru, it's very strange, particularly the amount of ancient-looking Chinese ruins, and then that the Jesuits control them all. Now I've gone to Spain, far east Spain, let's call it, in Valencia, and I'm seeing a lot of Chinese-looking terracotta stucco clay, kind of like the bricks, and then a lot of brick buildings. And I wonder, you've made some videos about Cambodia, China, the samurai in Japan. What are your thoughts on the Tartarian Asia, Tartarasia, I guess?
First of all, I did not understand well what is the Chinese stuff that you saw in Peru.
Because there's so much. They have bells. They have they have acupuncture. So the first thing I saw when I got there was, they have like totem poles. And I came in from the east, I have to say. I started in Peru, went all the way down to Chile, went to the east, Argentina, went up to Uruguay, Paraguay, across Bolivia. So by the time I got there, I noticed, there was modern Chinese in some places. But in Bolivia, there's lots of Chinese totem poles. There's lots of people that have supposedly been there for 200 years. And once you get into the Peruvian rainforest, which is northeast, it's pretty much the center. You're as close as you can get to Brazil. They don't speak Spanish, for instance. They speak Quechua for the most part, the Indian language. In that region, I found people that were, 200 years or 300 years or 400 years, Chinese families, and huge communities of them. And they make shamanistic bells. They make these brass bells, and they make certain harmonies with singing bowls. They do acupuncture. They do herbology. And I met this lady who had this I should mention, she had a stigmata on her wall. That's when I walked by and I saw it was the Virgin Mary on her wall, and she's got flowers in front of it. And she's like, yep, the grease fire, it revealed this this holy symbol. I was like, cool, who are you? And so she's got like, her family came from China 400 years earlier, and her husband's family were Peruvian natives. And so they created together over their lifetime a school of holistic medicine using Peruvian medicine and herbs mixed with Chinese medicine and herbs, which has been brought over and grown. But, you can't go to any block or quad without finding Chinese chicken or a Chinese family in every part of the architecture. Everywhere there are bricks with the Chinese pointed roofs and the Pope-like spheres with the points, like the copper brass points on all the roofs that are like electrical. What are those called again? The
pagodas, something.
There are pagodas. There's another great word. I forget the name. I'm sorry. I also forget. Tasmus or Tartarasmus, I forget. There's like a name for like the electrical Tesla-like thing, like that's on the top of all these buildings. It's supposed to illuminate because it's got a ball on it, like a gold ball, a sphere. I don't know. I can't remember. I have to look that up.
Well, after hearing all this, then what I would say is that they keep coming, because I was always asking myself, I didn't know about all this because I stayed in Peru but did not travel in Peru. I was only in one place in Pucallpa, and I was always asking myself, why these shipibos, they look like Chinese? They did not come 400 years ago. Definitely they are older. So Chinese, or I cannot make a visual discrimination between Chinese and Koreans, for example, but something very Asian.
Right, this Mongoloid thing.
The Mongoloid thing. So they were there, and these that came 300-400 years ago that you're talking about, they are simply from the more recent waves.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shipibos and the others, they belong to the older waves.
Right.
They keep coming. And also, one of the first conquistadors. It's interesting that in their chronicles, whatever we have left from them, although we don't have originals, but still, whatever they give us, it says that when they arrived, they found two races. They found Mongoloid people and the ruling Caucasian people, ruling class Caucasian people, and the others were described as Mongoloids. So they keep coming over there as well.
just after talking to Philip Druge, I call him Druge, Philip Druge, had we made a little. I said, what do you bet after this conversation with we have that they're going to release some of the stuff we're talking about will be disclosed on BBC. Right after that, I think it was just an hour or two, they admitted to the Homo floresiensis DNA sequence being proven that there's a new cross hybrid between Neanderthal and also another one between the Denisovan and the Floresiensis. Floresiensis are the small humans. They're supposed to be like the Hobbit people. So maybe that's a thing that we'll see in South America as examples of mixtures of different Mongoloids or different, the different 5 races with the different humanoids, with the giants and with the dwarves and with Floresiensis, Denisovan, etc. Do you think that that's like maybe what's going on is that we're seeing different kinds of humanoids that are being mixed in different ways?
Most definitely. I also don't believe that the human races evolved from a common ancestry while adapting to their environment. I think they were seeded by different laboratories. So it was a very interesting mixture. And I think about some 200-300 years ago, we were put under a common denominator, and we are more or less like uniform now.
Apparently.
Not much. But before that, again, coming back to where we started, those short knights' armors, and also the beds in some of the castles which had original furniture. Same as in the Brighton castle, very, very small beds. I mean, I wouldn't sleep well on it. My feet would stick out. I guess that's better than your head hanging down. So
the name was Technasma. That was the thing, like the trident, on the top of the buildings that make electricity. The Technasma. Yes. But yeah, okay. So in general, everywhere we go, we're seeing humanoids that are being mixed together, and then at some point in the last 200 years, everything became kind of normalized. It seems pretty clear. I agree with that. Let me get to my list of questions. Sorry. Is there anything also that you would like to know?
To know.
Yeah, or ask her about. I know. I mean, I don't know if I have the answer, but
no, I just want to congratulate you that you are doing a good work by starting this channel and letting the people join your own inquiries. This is a good thing.
Thank you. I'm trying my best to just make it more for the sake of other people, that's the plan. I don't want it to be about me. I got lucky for a few days. I don't know. So, okay, so the last thing I wanted to ask you about basically is in terms of like silicon trees, megalithic stones, the Palladian energies, all of these things, what are the things that you don't, people ask you about lasers and things. What are the things that you don't get to talk about that you want to talk about? Like, what are the things that you feel like you're deterred from, but you're interested in, that you're trying to pursue now, that you want to learn about more?
Personally, or in terms of making videos?
Those are, I would say personally, but also in terms of making videos. But, personally foremost, because forget it. Who cares about what other people want for a second,
Personally, I have always been interested in shamanic stuff and spirituality.
Excellent.
My own magical powers. This has been from the start definitely the reason I got born. I always knew that even when I was a child.
I sense that.
I never bought all these other ideas of life competition, or it was all these things were strange talk to me. And I still am on that quest. And somehow I ended up in the field of ancient history, which in the beginning I thought was by some mistake of the angels. I thought they just didn't get the right person or something. I did not understand why they got confused in such a way to get me involved in ancient history. But gradually I understood that it wasn't a mistake. My most important qualification is that I can very easily disregard all these things about history which everybody believes in, and there are like so many people, if you tell them that you're even questioning the Roman Empire, they sincerely think you're not okay, you need to see a psychiatrist, actually.
Right, a psychiatrist.
Yeah. They cannot wrap their mind around that this is just an idea, and yes, it could be wrong. This possibility does not exist for them, while I have this flexibility, and that is my main qualification. A bonus would have been if in the beginning, I thought if I knew more things about conventional history, but gradually I'm getting disillusioned about this one as well, because
right.
What would have been the use if I knew about what I could have learned, for example, in a university about history? Then it would be even more pain realizing that it was a waste of time learning all those lies. So, and the reason for which the angels put me to do this work is because many people need to learn about spirituality, but they don't even understand that that's what they need in life. But they are attracted to ancient history because of curiosity or some other reasons. And then they hear my videos, in which I use the ancient history as as a reason to introduce them into the ancient spirituality, which is actually the main thing. Otherwise, it's not that important what happens a long time ago, unless it redefines who we are right now.
Well, that's a pretty good answer. I can't help but have a bias and say yes, and I encourage you. I sense that, and I think you need to. I think your shamanism is the right path to go. It's the more intuitive approach. I'm stuck doing a bit more of the revealing of the lie, being as, I studied the news, so I know how to look into history and see what they're lying about. So I'm kind of stuck here, but intuition is definitely the way to go. If I had to advise you on anything, I'd say also try a saltwater bath at 3 o'clock in the morning. Perked me right up. I heard that as advice from my last interview from Africa. And apparently it really helps with the negative spirits that you can incur during the blacked out or the full moon. Okay, bonus question for you. Where is the next thing in Europe that you want to see?
In Europe?
Yeah.
I was thinking about Spain and Portugal. They have this place where they have vehicle tracks and dinosaur steps in the very same bedrock. I think that's interesting. Yeah.
Dude, where is that? Excuse me, ma'am. Where is that? Where in Spain is this? I don't know. I've never heard of that yet.
I don't have the name at this moment, but you can find it easily. It's the biggest official site with dinosaur steps in Spain, and I believe second or third largest in the world.
Wow. Okay.
So somewhere on the
An Iberian peninsula.
Yeah, there is. It's mostly dinosaur footprints. There are plenty of them, and also somewhere in back, right?
The dirt bear, the Agriartos. It's like a giant dirt panda, and then the Aragosaurus. Okay, this is very cool. Thank you. I am in Spain, so I will start looking into this. I guess maybe it wasn't that clever of me. I was kind of asking in general. Also, anywhere in Spain that you think I should look? Is there anything you want me to, or you think I ought to see that you think I should do while I'm in Spain and Portugal area?
I don't know, where are you in Spain?
Well, I got all the time in the world, but right now I'm in Valencia, which is the southwest. But I'm going to just go across it towards the west, I think. I'm in the southeast. I don't know why I said that. I'm in the east, but I'm from Barcelona.
If you happen to go in direction France, you can please see this pyramid. It's I can send you the location of this one, but don't try to approach it from the front side because it's exactly on the border between France and Spain. And
the Falcon? You mean in the Pyrenees?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I've been there. I got some footy of that. There are wild ponies that live up there. I will definitely send you some stuff. But yeah, I will go back there for this purpose now that I've had my Tartarian upgrade. So, for sure.
Oh, well, I don't know if you should go specifically for the pyramid because the axis may be cut.
No, like, yeah, you just have to say you're a Catholic pilgrim on the Camino, and you can do whatever you need.
Good, this is a good one, but still try to approach it from the back side because if you try to go on the steps on the front side, they stop the people on the pretext that the steps are dangerous.
Oh, so you're saying you need to go... Okay, so you're saying look at it from Spain into France. That's what you're saying?
Well, there is no border anymore.
Okay.
It's European Union.
Right. But yeah, the deal usually is you walk Saint Jean Pied de Port over the Pyrenees from France into Spain because that's like it's like a pilgrimage. It's a tourist hike. But I don't know anyone who walks the other direction. So yeah, I should look into that. It seems like okay.
Also in the, was it Burgos Mountains or something like that? But that's a difficult one to find. People have been there and have not found it. Officially, that's a hill or entire mountain with lots of, they call them aqueducts. I'm not sure if they're really aqueducts or roads or something, but it is rock cut and it could be of the magnitude of the Gadara aqueduct. If you have not seen my short video on the Gadara aqueduct, I would strongly advise you to see it. Absolutely. We may have something similar in Spain. It's in northeast Spain. And a friend of mine went there but could not find them. They are not like touristy, and it's a mountain and you don't know where they are, but I think there is a lot of potential over there.
Okay. Yeah, you can help me and I can look for that. I have some friends up in the northeast above Barcelona, so I'll probably get them to help and we can look for that.
Perfect. Yes, we will need a local person to find those.
Yeah.
And another one is this big rock-cut city. It's again, I forgot the name, but it's in northern Spain, and I can send you the name of that one after I find it.
Perfect.
Visiting.
That way you and I know and everyone else think it's a surprise. Okay. Is there anything else that you're about to do that you want? Are you about to make a video? Do you want to plug?
Oh, yeah, now I'm back home and I will just sit and make videos all the time because I have lots of material. Jordan 1 month in Spain, and now this recent expedition. So there was really a lot of unpublished material.
Excellent. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate that you did this. I hope that we can talk again soon more about things. There's a lot of things we couldn't cover because this has just been our first really conversation, but everything you do about the philosophy of the cultures, like the Etruscans, the samurai, the way you've been looking at, Malta, everything you do is just, I think you're using the correct psychological lens. So I appreciate you, and I really appreciate this.
Oh, thank you very much. It means a lot when I hear such words from smart young people like you.
Well, right back at you. All right. Have a great one. Take care.
Yes. Have a nice day, and thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
You as well.